I have been practicing this habit for a little over a year. This is not something that's new. You are tapping into programming that's already in your mind and body and now directing it back at yourself. You got to try this for 5 days. It's extraordinary. What's interesting is that we all talk about the importance of setting our day up because it's how it ends up. We talk about gratitude and meditation, and we know the extraordinary benefits of it. But I don't think anybody has truly amplified the fact that there is this dirty habit that we all have every single morning that is a part of your morning routine, unless you have weeded this out. And it is a habit of either ignoring yourself or beating the heck out of yourself every single morning in the mirror. I mean, 91% of women don't like how they look. 50% of us can't even look at ourselves in the mirror. So you're basically just going to look at yourself in the mirror and you're going to ask yourself, what does that human being need from me today? How can I show up for him or her or they? How do I do that today? Kindness? Do I need to be more courageous or bold? You kind of set this intention for yourself. And then you're simply going to raise your hand and you're going to high five yourself. Now, a couple things I want you to expect. Number one, it will feel weird, period. It feels weird for everybody because it is the opposite of what you're doing right now. And so your brain is going to reject it as odd. Number two, you're either going to have one of two reactions. That's it. There's no middle ground. You will either have a very profound positive experience where you're going to laugh, probably because it kind of feels good and it's kind of silly, or you're going to burst into tears in a positive way because it's a release that you have finally woken up and started supporting yourself. You just got it. And that's where the tears come from. But more likely, you will feel resistance. Every single morning, we bring with us our entire past. Whatever's been done to you, whether it's trauma or discrimination or abuse or neglect or abandonment, it is standing between you and the mirror. It's the dust. And you see that dust and you say, that means that I am not worthy. I am not lovable. So you see a human being that's distorted and you say to yourself, because of what's happened, I don't deserve a high five. And so I'm here to say you got to try this for 5 days because it's going to feel weird. You're going to resist it. And what's going to happen is you'll notice as you raise your hand, and this is where the science gets amazing. As you raise your hand, you will go from thinking this is weird or thinking this is stupid to silence. And this is explained by science. There is a field of study called neurobics. Neurobics is a word that I did not invent. It is aerobic or physical movement with new neural pathway development. And research has shown that when you use neurobics, it is the fastest way to form new neural pathways. So the way that you do it is you take an unexpected physical movement, like high-fiving yourself, something you've never done, and you marry it with a thought. Now here's where things get crazy cool. You've been high-fiving people your whole life. You've been receiving high fives your whole life. So Jay, when you high-five somebody, what are you communicating through the gesture?
A feeling of connectedness, a feeling of support, a feeling of I'm congratulating you or celebrating you, a feeling of you've got this, like that kind of feeling.
Yeah, completely. All of it is programmed in your subconscious brain. When you go to raise your hand to high five somebody, I can never high five Jay and go, Jay, I don't like you. You can't do it because the programming is already in your brain. So you cannot look at yourself in the mirror and think terrible things while you're high fiving yourself because your brain won't allow it. It is programmed to think something different. And as you repeat this every day, just 5 days, dear God, give me 5 days of doing this. You will override the critic and you will reprogram your mind to associate belief, love, encouragement, support, resilience with your own reflection. This is why I don't even see myself in terms of a body anymore. I see a human being that I love, that I support, just like I would a friend or a child that I love unconditionally. It's mind-blowing, but that's not all. So I talked to our pal, Dr. Daniel Amen. And this isn't even in the book. When you high-five somebody else, your brain drips dopamine. The reason why when you do this, even on a low morning, you get a boost in your mood and a little bit of clarity is you get a drip of dopamine by high-fiving yourself. Again, because the programming is already in your brain. You're just now turning it from everybody else and giving it to yourself. And there's a second thing that's super cool. You know, when you leave the bathroom, you feel kind of peppy, right? Let me tell you what that is. Your nervous system is encoded with celebratory energy. When you wave hello, you're raising your arms. When you cross a finish line, you raise your arms. When you hug somebody, you raise your arms. When you high five somebody, you raise your arms. When you do this every morning, especially when you're going through a challenging moment, your nervous system recognizes the celebratory gesture and gives you a jolt of energy. This is both common sense and science. How does your favorite sports team begin the game? By high-fiving each other to send yourself out into the game. But when researchers actually studied NBA teams, they could predict who's going to be the most successful teams at the end of the season and who's going to be at the bottom of the league based on one characteristic at the beginning of the season in the preseason. And that is, how many times does the team in the preseason do fist bumps, high fives, or pats on the back? And what they found is it's the teams that do that the most in the beginning have the winningest record. And the question is why? Well, the reason why is these gestures are more than gestures. They are symbols of trust and partnership. They build momentum. And so many of us are struggling in life with people-pleasing and guilt and all of these emotions because we have broken that partnership with ourselves. Yes. And this is a way every morning after brushing your teeth, we're going to stack this habit. Put the toothbrush down, pick up your hand, look yourself in the mirror and say, how am I going to show up for that human being today? And seal it with a high five. That's it. Your mood in the morning impacts your confidence and your productivity all day. We know that research from Harvard tells us that when you get intentional about how you're going to show up, it not only boosts your productivity and your confidence and your focus, it also changes your ability to make an impact with people. We also know all the research around what's called emotional contagion. When you separate leaders into two groups and you show one group a leader, very stressful videos for 20 minutes that make you feel agitated or bummed out, and you throw another group all these videos with puppies and kittens, the leaders that go in to their teams, within 10 minutes, the teams feel exactly either the negative agitation or the positive agitation, but it goes even deeper. So the high five habit in the mirror, it's just the Trojan horse. There are dozens of tools in this. The reticular activity system, which is the filter in your brain that in real time is changing. We've all experienced its effect when we've shopped for a house or a car. The second you start shopping for your first car, what happens? You start seeing those cars that you're looking for everywhere. Everywhere. That's your RAS. You have a bouncer in your brain that has a massive job. And the job of your bouncer in your brain is to decide what gets into the prefrontal cortex, what passes through. There's only 4 things that actually get through automatically. Your name. We've all experienced it. Oh, did they say Jay? The second thing is any immediate threat. So like if you hear a loud noise, you'll kind of like duck. But there are loud noises all day that don't make you do that because the bouncer in your brain is blocking it out. The third one, and this can be tricky for relationships, this is any sign that you think your partner might be interested in with you or somebody else. This is that jealousy. Hey. And then the fourth one, and this is where the treasure is. This is everything. Your brain filters the world based on what you tell it is important to you. So when you're shopping for a new car, you suddenly say to your RAS, this is important to me, and it lets in imagery of the car. This works in positive and negative ways. Trauma is an example of how your filter gets trained by a very negative event. It becomes very important because your nervous system responded to it, so your brain records as much as it can to try to protect you. A positive way is by writing out of your goals. They having visual and environmental triggers that keep these things front of mind. These are ways to train your brain for a positive effect. So one of the things that happens when you start to high five yourself and why it goes so much deeper even than the boost and the partnership is that what happens is you're now tapping into an entire field of research called behavioral activation therapy. If you don't know it, there's a very simple way to talk about it. It's called act like the person you want to become. And the reason why this is so important is we know thinking alone won't get you to change. You actually have to take the actions that change everything. And one of the reasons why high-fiving yourself is such a powerful action is the bouncer in your brain, the RAS, it's paying attention. when it suddenly sees you stop the beatdown and it sees you act differently,